Hello, survivors, and welcome to the Zombicide Fans Podcast, where we discuss and review all Zombicide games. I'm Ryan.
I'm Schmedley.
And I'm James.
And today we'll be doing our review and discussion about the Zombicide Black Plague Kickstarter and expansions. So this is part 2 for Black Plague. If you'd like to listen to our discussion about just the Black Plague core box, then head on back to that episode. And then quick reminders, listeners, head on over to our website, zombicidefans.com, where there's a ton of amazing community-submitted content, custom missions, custom survivors, heroes, zombies, equipment, house rules, variants, templates, etc., all kinds of goodies, all free to use, free to sign up and submit your own custom stuff as well. You can also find links to that, our Discord and our Facebook group, and just a lot of different things mentioned in the show notes or description. And that's the friendly reminders. So, okay, this is our 5th episode now. And we just wanted to check in with you who's listening or watching on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and watching on Spotify maybe or YouTube. And let us know, how are we doing? We're always looking to improve. And while we're doing this for fun for us, we're definitely doing it for you too, the listener. So, how do you like the show? What do you like? What don't you like? We always want to improve. Shoot us an email over at zombicidefans@gmail.com. We also want to have a listener, mailbag segment. So if you ever want to talk with us, have any questions or anything like that, hit us up there. And there is one specific question I have in terms of improving the show, which is, what do you think about the length of the show? Because there's a lot of people that I know in life that have said that's too long, because our episodes are usually around 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. And I just want to know from our actual core listener audience, what do you think about the length of the show? Is it cool? Is it not cool? Let us know. Yeah, let's talk about the news real quick before we get into our whole review and discussion. White Death. There is a big White Death.
We got a timeline.
Yes. Let me get this up here. Yeah, so we finally have got a timeline with a nice graphic and everything. Delivery updates. There's a lot of different stuff here, like coordinating logistics and loading containers, but shipping to backers, 2025, March 2025. And it's funny, there's a little asterisk even there, expected delivery dates vary depending on the location, of course. So yeah, that's exciting to finally have that date.
I do like, I mentioned this before, I like this little disclaimer they have about the retail copies, because that's been a little controversial in a few of their recent projects. Yeah,
because it's shown up in Australia that I know about, the retail stuff. Has it shown up other places that we know about, that we've seen?
White Death, I haven't heard about, but they caught a lot of flack for that in Cthulhu Death May Die. I think it's happened to Zombicide before. The one I know it happened with was Marvel. So they're getting ahead of it by warning that it might happen. So
yeah. I mean, it's not the first time for CMON. It's not the first time for any game company. I've seen this happen a lot for a lot of different game companies. So, it's unfortunate. They can't really do much about it, at some point.
They got contracts to fulfill, yeah.
Yeah. From what I understand, weren't they saying that, the retail stuff goes to the distributors and the distributors just distribute it when they want to distribute it, right? Because they've already got it. So they're not going to they're not going to sit on it. Okay, there's another update that came out for Deceased, and they're just sharing the Gotham Knights samples. So it's, again, always exciting. They said 93% of the miniatures are ready for production. So they're showing the box insert and the different miniatures and how amazing they look and how much I can't wait to get them on the table and fight things with them and whatnot. Yeah, they've just got a ton of different characters.
I didn't get to follow along Marvel Zombies as it was follow along all the updates. So it is super cool to see the roster slowly being built out in a way that they don't normally do, just because the superhero ones have so many survivors.
James, are you just like extra excited to see the bystanders? Because I know you want to replace your standees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you thinking about getting at least this retail box so you can do that?
I don't see why not. Obviously, at this point, not being part of the Kickstarter, everything I'm going to have to do if I want to get into it is going to be retail or secondhand. But, thanks to, some new online sites that have come out in the last couple of years, it's a lot easier to kind of be a late backer. Obviously, you're going to pay a little bit more, but at the same time, all that money I didn't get CMON has been making lots of interest in my bank account.
Nice. I can't like help but crack up seeing Harvey Bullock with what is it, a donut?
Yeah, because he doesn't have a gun. Of course he's eating a donut.
Yeah, there's no guns.
Yeah, no guns on these guys. Like we were talking about last time.
Yeah.
And they got the bat signal. And it looks great. And so I couldn't wait for a bat signal. So I got this bat signal on Amazon that I saw somebody post on, I think on like on a Facebook group. And it's probably, let's see, I've got Batman. It's like, yeah, just about the same size, it looks like, as the one that they're officially coming out with. And it lights up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So I'll put a link to this in the show notes so people can check it out. It's like today it's like $10, I think. And yeah, it's like the perfect size little bat signal. It's articulated, so it swivels up and down, and it's got a light and it actually shines. It shines the bat signal like, yeah, on a wall or something, or in this case on my hand. So it's delightful. It brings me joy just having this stupid thing. And it's cheap. It's affordable. Now the next thing I got to do is I got to find
a little side note. I like the description of this picture. I just like calling him just Jim. That's amusing to me.
Yeah,
Commissioner Gordon.
First name basis here.
Yeah,
Jim.
he's just Jim.
Just Jim.
Yeah.
Oh, why? But I always think I want to call him James Gordon.
I think his name is James Gordon. I mean, I guess Jim could be short for that.
Yeah. When did they change that? I don't know. Maybe like the 1989 Batman, it's James Gordon because that's what I'm most familiar with. So yeah, I got my Cthulhu Death May Die Fear of the Unknown pledge. And the box for the core box was damaged a little bit. It was just kind of caved in. It's not that big of a deal, but I got this thing new, and it's the shipper's responsibility to get it to me in brand new condition. So I just I went on CMON's website, and I just filled out the form and said like, hey, it's dented. Here's some images of it. And no problems. Like a couple of days later, like I got an immediate, automatic response. And then a day or two later, I got another response to say like, hey, sorry about that. We'll ship you a new one. They're just shipping me just the core box. Just the core box itself. It's like, so none of the other contents. It's like, we're going to give you so that's going to be great because I'll have an extra core box size box to store all my extra stuff that might come out. It's going to be pretty handy.
That does make shelving easier.
Yeah. So, for people, if you ever get damaged Kickstarter stuff, just hit up the company and they'll probably, CMON definitely, but who knows what company it might be for what game. They'll probably make it right. It's really great. That's the news. Coming up, our review and discussion about Zombicide Black Plague, Kickstarter, and expansions. Check out Board Game Goodies and save 10% with coupon code PODCAST at the URL boardgamegoodies.shop, where you will find various game upgrades and accessories, including the new Zombicide Black Plague and Wolfsburg inserts designed to store literally all products from the Black Plague campaign in just 2 boxes. So if you only have the Black Plague core box or the Huntsman Kickstarter pledge, you could go with just the Black Plague insert. If you have the Night pledge and or also need to store your Wolfsburg and all additional add-ons, like zombie bosses, even all of the artist's special guest boxes, you could fit it all in here. There are a bunch more goodies for other Zombicide games, as well as other games like Massive Darkness, Cthulhu Death May Die, Marvel Champions, Lorcana, Star Wars, and more. Listeners can save 10% with coupon code PODCAST over at boardgamegoodies.shop.
All right, I have some stats here. Black Plague is, of course, the first Zombicide game. It's not set in the modern setting. Its campaign ran from June to July of 2015. In that time, it got over 20,000 backers and raised over $4 million, which, like the first edition, at the time did make it both CMON's and Kickstarter's most successful campaign ever. And we'll see the CMON record broken a few more times, one of which by Black Plague Season 2. But this is the last time Zombicide ever held that Kickstarter record. Right now on Board Game Geek, it sits at a score of 7.6, which is comfortably above all the first edition stuff except Toxic City Mall, but overall still a little below average, like a lot of the older boxes are for the Zombicide franchise. For the record, Green Horde, just like a few months before Green Horde came out, I'll talk about this in the Green Horde stats. It's called like
Kingdom Death Monster?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that game is so huge. I never got it.
I had never even heard of it until doing this research, but I was never super plugged into board games until just recently. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, I never heard of that one either.
Really? Wow. Mm-mm. Yeah, it's a weird. It's totally phenomenon. Okay. Anyway, all right. So the Zombicide Black Plague Kickstarter page features all kinds of fun stuff. So like what's in the vault, and it just shows you, of course, everything that's in there. It's kind of insane, like all the stuff that it comes with, right? So the what's it called? The Huntsman Pledge for $100 gets you, or no, this is showing the 150. So let's just talk about that. They did this funny like early bird pledge thing. So the night pledge, which is like the all in pledge, was $140 for the early birds, and then the first 900 people, and then from then on it was $150 for everybody else. It's kind of
this is a thing. Zombicide doesn't do it very often, but I've definitely seen other Kickstarters do this same kind of thing.
And guess what you heard a lot about in the comments in the first couple of updates?
Is that one of your controversies?
Oh, there's so many people that claim that they were first in line and didn't get in for the 900 to get $10 off of a game. And, you had half of them going, I'm never going to pledge again to a CMON game again. Over $10. It's amazing to me.
Eventually we have to do like a tier list of these controversies.
Yeah. It's interesting. But one of the things I really liked compared to the first season that we did that had, 13, 16 tiers. I really feel like this game was really just broken down into 2 tiers. I mean, officially there's 3, of course, but really the 2 tiers make a lot of sense to me. Once again, I was unaware of Kickstarter at this time, but looking back at this, it's a lot easier to understand what you're getting for your money and why you would pay extra to get anything else.
Compared to the first Kickstarter, which is the only one we've looked at. Obviously, this is the 4th Kickstarter, not the 2nd. But compared to that one, it's definitely a lot more like what you'd expect now. It's a lot less experimental because they had done it a lot before.
Yeah, definitely more polished presentation now for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting into like what's in the vault. So $150 gets you all this. It's Black Plague. It's Wolfsburg, an expansion with more survivors, more tiles and missions and enemies. Hero box full of heroes, 12 more NPC or 12 NPC spawn cards that come with their miniatures. 3 more vault cards, a dice bag, a custom black dice that have custom faces on them. They're not just plain pips. An atrocious folding dice tower.
I've never seen this. How does that work?
It's just like a lousy plastic folding thing that's just the worst kind of dice tower you could imagine. I don't know. James, what do you think of the experience of trying to use this as a dice tower?
Honestly, I just use it. I just use it as storage. So I've said this before. I don't like Zombicide dice. I never have. So all the Zombicide dice I own, I just store in the folding dice towers that they've provided in all the Kickstarters. Same thing with the dice bag. I don't use the dice bag either.
I don't know.
So it's just storage for me.
I don't know if I phase this out or whatever. I didn't remember that you don't like any of the Zombicide dice.
I don't remember. I
I'm
wasn't
sorry. I really hate the dual symbols. If you have a symbol, that's great. Have it on the 1 or the 6, but don't have one symbol on the 1 and the other on the 6. Because when you're playing, nobody ever remembers what's what. Nobody ever remembers which one's a 6, which one's a 1. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, I thought it was pretty intuitive to have zombie as automatic fail and Molotov as automatic success, which is what 1 and 6 represent in Zombicide.
I mean, there have been times like when I'm playing with new people and I'm like trying to explain the rules and I'm realizing like it's kind of going long. And it's like, let's just start. Cause like, like there's all so many little edge rules in the Zombicide games.
I can see it.
You don't need to talk about them until you get to that part of the game, if it even happens, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I've had it happen before where we're rolling the dice and you're like, wait, what's that mean? They kind of freeze and are like, what does the head mean? And what does the torch mean? And yeah, so yeah, I could see it's kind of awkward. And I think it's a good point. Like just have one of them be a custom symbol, not both. And there's a first player metal coin.
That's pretty cool too.
Kickstarter exclusive. There's obviously all the different, zombie miniatures. And then it's cool because on the page, they have it really clearly marked what things are Kickstarter exclusives. And then also what things are night level pledge only. So for the extra $50 or 40, if you were lucky, you'll get some insane additional miniatures and stuff. We'll get into a little bit more detail in a sec. And then there was like extra necromancers and a bunch of extra survivors. There were also special guest box survivors. And this game, like the extras for this didn't come in like this, what comes in now, like the nice polished, like for Green Horde, the next fantasy campaign has like the Horde box. And just future versions have a nice polished box of full art and stuff. These came in like what they call pizza boxes. It's just like a plain brown cardboard box. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're, multiple colors, but yeah, in this case, they just kind of came in those plain brown cardboard pizza boxes, all the extras. And then there was there were optional buys and add-ons. You could get more colored custom dice. There was bone dice, there was red dice. There are Deadeye Walkers. There's another pair of survivors, Grom and Thalia. And who knows the reference for these characters?
It's not obvious at all.
A little on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah, they're totally Conan and Red Sonja. And the art is great on those, actually. You could get extra game tiles. There was a plastic token pack that had like little broken wall sections. It's made for one specific item. I was like, what do these belong to? If you have the plastic token pack and you have like these broken wall sections, they're specifically for the what's he called, James?
Abominator.
Abominator. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're like, what do these belong to? They're for him because he could break through walls like a Kool-Aid man.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm out on a lot of this. What do you use if you don't have it? Do you just use like an open door token?
No, he actually came with paper versions of this.
Okay.
So if you didn't get the box set that he's in, he actually comes with his own paper token, like a spawn token, only smaller. They look like broken walls.
And when you say paper, it's not actually paper; it's cardboard. But yeah, let's make sure
it's not cardboard.
Kickstarter stuff. So this is all new to me too. I've never gotten a plastic token pack. How are those? Are those any good?
I love them.
You like them? Okay.
Oh yeah, very much.
Yeah, I mentioned on the. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like other editions that come with the plastic tokens, I really much prefer them over the standard ones. And the broken wall tokens are a fun bit too.
Yeah, it's cool that they went the extra mile instead of just making like a 3D version of the cardboard one or like a plastic version of the cardboard one like they did with all the others. It's cool to make it like a nice paintable wall.
Yeah, so the plastic token packs I don't usually like. I love the idea of them, but the execution leaves me wanting because they are not nearly as vibrant as they're presented here. At least mine aren't. And as I mentioned last episode, the paint jobs on them differ just enough where if you're kind of really paying attention, and even if you're trying not to, like for me, my brain, the way it works, like pattern recognition, I'll be like, oh, that one, the way that the red is kind of faded on the X, I can know that the blue one's on the other side of that one, or the green one, or what have you. So they're marked in a way that can, that I can't get around.
Your eyesight's a lot better than mine.
Cool. Yeah. So those things, like they just didn't execute on them as perfectly as they should have. Let's see what else they got. There's an NPC 2 pack. So NPCs, notorious plagued characters. And if you're familiar with the classic setting, there was the VIPs. It's the exact same.
Love a good acronym joke.
Yeah. It's the exact. They're pretty much the exact same as the VIPs in the classic setting, classic/modern, first edition, etc. There's a counter base pack, and it just dawned on me recently what that's for, because the counter base packs, they come in all these different colors, and I was like, "What is this, just for fun, or what's going on here?"
It's for the necromancers.
Yes, it just dawned on me. So that was helpful, because those colors match the necromancer's spawn, like those sides, those necromancer spawn zones, how they're different colors.
Yeah.
You got your gray and your off orange and your purple and your dark red and your green and your brown. It's like,
it
genius.
seems like a hassle to put a base on a necromancer every time it spawns, because sometimes they're barely there for any time at all. It's a cool idea.
It's a nice touch, but honestly, as I said in the last episode, playing with multiple necromancers isn't that great. So I never use them because I don't play with multiple necromancers.
Yeah, I do play with multiple necromancers, and it's not too hard to remember like where they're coming from or where they're headed, or it doesn't matter that much to me that I would need to mark them. They also have a little pair of deck holder sets. So there's like a red one and a yellow one, and then these plastic things that have, they're cool. They're cool and they're not cool. So there's the one thing I love about them is like, you get to keep your decks in order, on the table, but they, like their corners that the vertical part of them, the corners, they kind of snap or slide in, not exactly snap, but they just slot into place. And they can kind of get loose on their own. You can knock them free, and then you kind of get a mess. Did you ever use those, James?
So this is one of two places where I think the community really stepped in and did a much better job than Simon did. The deck holders, I never use these. I feel bad that I can't say who the user is on Thingiverse. They came up with his own 3D printed deck holders. And what makes them, to me, far superior is they also give you a discard tray to put your discard cards in. And those not having a discard tray is what really makes them kind of useless to me. Yeah. I don't find them very user-friendly. And then the second thing is back to the plastic tokens, the vault doors. There's also another guy on Thingiverse that came up with vault tokens that actually open like the 3D doors do. Yeah. And they're really cool, and they're provided to you in different colors, so you don't have to paint them if you don't want to. Like the vault itself is gray, and then there's like a purple image on top, or violet image on top, and then like a yellow or gold image on top of the other ones. And I much prefer those than what Simon did in the plastic tokens. Yeah.
So our plug opportunity, our sponsor, Board Game Goodies Shop, has both of those things. So deck holders that are red and with deck and discard, and also yellow deck and discard.
Great.
Yeah. So you can get those at boardgamegoodies.shop, and then also their own versions that are very similar to those ones you probably saw in Thingiverse of the black the purple and yellow vault doors that open up.
I love that they open. That's great.
Yeah. And they're the exact same size as the originals. So they're not different. I think the Thingiverse ones were a little bit bigger. They were a little different, but these fit right in. Like if you have a holder, and the insert organizer that holds the vault door tokens. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. These will fit right in that spot. Oh my God. Okay. All right. They've also got the 3D door pack, which is just totally essential.
Agree 100%.
Yeah. As much as I would like to have like the fully blinged out, like there are so many people online that have done complete like miniature terrain 3D printed or
like,
molded.
Yeah,
or
like
sculpted.
with the walls for the rooms and stuff. I've seen it. Yeah.
All the walls and all the floors and like buildings, full buildings. And they're just basically using like Warhammer Fantasy stuff or whatever, compatible kind of thing, like skirmish war games.
I already
or whatever.
hate setup. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I do love all of that, but I don't have room for any of that. And that's why I haven't gone down that road.
If I was making like if it was like some kind of special event, if I was like running a game at a convention or something, that'd be really cool. But
yeah. And they also have the dice bag that we touched. So just a nice drawstring dice bag you throw all your dice into and never look at them again if you're James. There's a Zombie Bosses Abomination pack, which is pretty cool. I think it's the first time, like just chronologically, that they did this for any Zombicide game. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Black Plague is the first one with like the real unique abominations.
And then a Murder of Crows box, which is the same pretty much as the Crows box in the classic first edition modern setting. And then just a lot of special guest boxes.
Whole bunch of them.
James, what do you think about these special guest boxes?
So I really don't mean to sound negative at all, but it's a lot. So you got 3 of them in the Huntsman tier. So whether you wanted them or not, you were getting 3 boxes of them for your $100 bid, which who can complain about free miniatures, right? But then they offered 10 more. And spoiler alert, this would be the last time they would offer 13 guest boxes in a campaign. They would start to drop significantly from here. And I'm really curious if it's just because they didn't sell enough of them or they couldn't find enough interest in the artists to do them. I would like to know the behind the scenes of how they did, because for everybody in the comments section on the Kickstarter that complained about the number of artist boxes here, I would love to poll them right now and ask them to go to eBay and say, hey, do you wish you had picked these up now? Because all of them go for nearly $250 to $300 a box. I mean, the amount that you have to pay secondhand market for a lot of these, not all of them, but a good majority of them is to me outrageous for what you could have gotten $20. If your stockbroker is telling you to buy a certain stock, you should tell them to shut up and just buy guest boxes, on these Kickstarters, because the ROI on them is insane. And I do like the fact that they tried to put something there for everybody. Obviously, everybody's got different tastes. Some of these were very comic booky looking. Some of them were very old school fantasy looking. Some of them were almost surreal looking, depending on the artist. But honestly, if you had to get any of these, if you're saying, well, James, I can't get them all, which ones do I want to get? I would suggest the ones that include heroes and enemies in the boxes, because some of these actually include necromancers that you can add in, which is nice to have instead of just getting more and more survivors. And some of them, you can even play the necromancers as both survivors and necromancers. So whichever way you're feeling that day, you can use your miniature. So anytime that you can get more use out of a single miniature, I'm all for.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they were doing stuff like that this early on. So that's super cool. The kind of dual purpose there, because later on they do that for a bunch of the second edition expansions, the brand deals and stuff, brand collabs. I personally don't own any of these because I got very late to the Black Plague collecting game.
Did we actually say did we actually define what a special guest box is for someone who might not even really know or see this?
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so a special guest box is like a special artist guest box. And they started this in Classic in probably season 2?
Yeah, Prison Outbreak.
Yeah.
Had 3 of them.
Wow, only 3. Yeah, so
We've
like
come a long way.
Yeah, so like special guest Adrian Smith, and he's done art in a lot of different CMON games, which is actually funny because this one says Hate in the background, and they much later came out with its own board game called Hate. I didn't realize that connection until right now. But anyway, yeah. So they invite, artists to come and do their own special guest box and just idealize and produce the art for, usually three survivors. Is it 3 or is it 4?
It's usually 4.
Okay, that's right. There's like a main image and then there's like a small 3 boxes. Yeah. So usually, usually the 4 survivors are 4 miniatures. And then sometimes they'll throw in, other stuff in there, other types of things, not just survivors. It's like $20 each, when they first came out. And then the weird thing is that they, for whatever reason, decided like these are not marked as Kickstarter. Technically, they're not Kickstarter exclusives. I guess technical is a relative term right here because they were Kickstarter exclusive, right? They never produced these again after this, which is why the prices got insane in the second market.
Right. 3 of them. I think what they're trying to define is that you get 3 of them, the Mark Simonetti, the Paul Bonner, and the Naiad one, as part of the Huntsman Pledge. So in theory, those are free, whereas the other 10 are optional buys in the Kickstarter, so you have to pay extra for them. I think that's what they're trying to distinguish there, but I could be wrong.
Did they not mark other stuff as Kickstarter exclusive when it was an optional buy? I do notice up here the dice bag and the folding dice tower also aren't marked like that, and they also were.
The Zombie Bosses Abomination Pack with the 3 miniatures was part of the Huntsman Pledge, but they also offered it as a optional buy. So it was both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and it did come to retail
like that. Yeah,
but yeah, these 10 special guest boxes for whatever reason did not come to retail. Right? Is it all 10 of them that didn't? There was
10, and it's funny. Most of the ones that I picked up were actually in stores, not on eBay. I'd find them on some game shelf collecting dust because nobody was playing Zombicide at that game store, and nobody knew what the heck they were. And so I'd buy them when I could, and when I could find them. So I don't really know exactly how they got out to the public.
So they did come to retail. It's just that it must have been a low production because there wasn't a lot of interest to spend that much money on just a few survivors, few miniatures.
And again, I'd love to know how the sausage was made on that one. I'd really like to know because, spoiler alert, they don't do this many again going forward. So I'd just like to know why that is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an odd choice. I did end up collecting all of them. I did get some of them at ridiculous prices. Just because I'm a nut and I'm completionist and I've got to do my best to try. Yeah,
I've pretty much just accepted fantasy and first edition as my my passes on completing the collection because they're so expensive, especially this late.
Yeah. So James, do you know off the top which ones are the ones that do have necromancers?
Real memory test.
Well, the Naiad one does.
Okay.
And I want to say Paul Bonner the one with the Blackheart guy in it?
No, I'm looking at it here. It's Stefan Kopinski has the Blackheart guy.
Yeah, he's one. And I'm not going to remember the third one. Sorry, the third one's leaving me.
Yeah, I'm like looking at him being like, which one is it? Which guy looks familiar here?
Oh, I know what it is. I think it's the Carl Kritschko one.
Okay.
He's got a weird name.
Oh yeah, Tumi
Koopa. Yeah. He's a necromancer.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want extra necromancers, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was a thing. You'll want to get the Carl Kritschko, the Stefan Kopinski, and what was the other one again? Was it Naiad?
The Naiad. Yeah, Naiad or however you pronounce that person's name.
Right.
I'm not familiar with their artwork.
Yeah.
I really do like their artwork and the miniatures. I just don't know how to pronounce their name.
Yeah.
So the number of survivors in this Kickstarter blew all previous Kickstarters away. There ended up being 91 survivors that came out of this. Those 90 some odd survivors, 15 of them were in the 3 retail boxes. With Black Plague having 6, Wolfsburg having 4, and then of course the Hero Box 1 having 5. Then there were 3 Kickstarter exclusive boxes, that had there was the Knightsman pack, the Huntsman pack. Those equaled out to 25 survivors, and then of course the 13 guest artist boxes were 51 survivors alone. So there was a lot of miniatures, a lot of survivors. I can tell you that I actually have played with them all. So for the people that are like, I'm never going to play with all these survivors.
Wow.
Well, my group made a point to do so. Basically, we started a chart, and then we got some D20s and started rolling dice. So we would, randomly pick characters for every quest, and we just went through them all until, we got through them all. That was fun. But if you're going to spend the time to paint them, then you might as well play with them.
Yeah, I mean, I have not nearly all of them. I mean, I have the core box in Wolfsburg, and I haven't even used all of those. So
yeah,
that is impressive that you've played with all of them. Bravo.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes you get some odd combinations randomly putting them together. Probably the worst combinations is just when you get like 2 or 3 characters with, the same blue skill. Then it kind of is like, okay, well, what does it matter what I do with this one? It's
right.
kind of all the same.
That really depends, because honestly, I think as far as blue skills go, any blue skill that gives you a free action of some kind will always be pretty top tier. Mm-hmm. Like even core survivors, like I think we're talking Nelly with a free movement and Baldric with a free magic or enchantment action, and those are both great survivors because of that. I feel like enchantments don't actually come up as much as maybe they should, but the free combat action is all right.
Yeah, I'm speaking specifically of, say, 3 people in the group all pull survivors with Bloodlust Melee and their blue skill. Like, okay, well, I guess it's the first person to find the great sword, and then let's see what happens.
I like Bloodlust, but yeah, I can see doubling up on it being a little rough. But I mean, if everybody gets like a free search action, that's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah. So if there's 2 things that I just generally don't love about Zombicide in general across the board, it's the number of survivors that they have in all the games, in all the Kickstarters, I should say. It's too much. It's overwhelming. It's too much for me to want to paint. It's too much for me to worry about. Am I ever going to play all of these?
They have really toned it down in as they go on. As far as expansions that are nothing but survivors go, that was a big thing in like first edition. We see it a little bit, but they're starting to add in like necromancers and stuff. And when you get to second edition and all the brand collabs, everything has, here's some survivors, here's some abominations, here's some that are both. But also at the same time, they didn't really, I mean, they came back with like Marvel and stuff, but most of those double as abominations, or abomination equivalents. And also actually, I feel like Marvel kind of solved the problem with making them distinct also.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Marvel actually, because that actually is not true for me for Marvel, because it's IP and they're all characters that I know and love, or most of them are all characters that I know and love.
I feel the same way about a lot of the brand collabs. Like I do have, 14 survivors from The Boys, but they're all, especially if you've watched the show, they're all recognizable characters. So it's really funny that to have the Deep show up and pull up on some zombies, and then 3 different Batmans are there, and it does definitely, as opposed to like Ted.
Right.
Yeah, for me, my only counter to that is I completely understand being a painter. It's a lot to get through, and a lot of the survivors end up seeming like they're the same. To me, is well, then who do you get rid of? Because for everybody that loves Ash, there's people out there that don't know who that is, and they want the Vlad the Impaler miniature. And for everybody that wants the Vlad the Impaler miniature, there's people out there that don't care about Dracula and want, the Monty Python characters. So unless you could have like some kind of voting system to where all the people that are going to back the thing, can all vote on, say, 50 characters, and then the top 50 characters, that's who they make. I don't want to take away somebody's favorite character by saying you should do less survivors, because somebody out there loves, Braveheart. Somebody really wants to play the Highlander. So
I wouldn't say I think they should do less. I think it's a good move to have less expansions just for a good business move to not have so many expansions that are just like have some, because especially in first edition there were so many expansions that I never even thought about getting because it was just 8 survivors or something that have some extra survivors, and I do know that is something that comes up a lot as campaigns go on. I saw recently with the Cthulhu Death May Die campaign that just happened, where whenever the daily reveal was a new character, people were like, we want something that's not a new character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's been going on since the very first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't do daily reveals back then.
No, in the very first Kickstarter, there were people complaining that 10 extra survivors was too much. I went back and read all the comments. Trust me, they were doing it.
That's crazy.
It's crazy to complain about it that low.
Yes.
I'm not even complaining about it now. I personally don't need more when I have 200, but I'm not going to say they shouldn't produce more.
Yeah. So it, the other thing is like organization, right? It gets harder and harder the more survivors they just keep tacking on. And you know, like I hand somebody like a big stack, like I'm holding a stack of all the survivors in just this Black Plague campaign. And it's probably a good 2 to 3 inches thick, probably 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, it could be exhausting for people to be like, who am I going to pick? Like I've had players come and I give them the whole set and that's my mistake. Right. But it's because it's here. And like, yeah, it just takes a long time to go through those. I am delighted by like all the pop culture references and stuff, but honestly, if like 20 survivors is fine for replayability in a game. And if I never knew about, I never got Ash or Dracula or William Wallace or Sean Connery or any of the, what are they called? Monty Python people. I would be fine. Like Xena, like it'd be fine. Like if I didn't even know and I missed out on those, it'd be okay. I would rather miss out on that fun than have to deal with all this extra stuff. Cause I feel like it's gluttony, and that's hilarious coming from a person like me who has all the Zombicide stuff.
Yeah. And that's largely why I'm okay leaving, Black Plague or Fantasy and First Edition as the ones I don't have everything with. But like moving forward, I have pretty much everything after Black Plague. I have pretty much everything for everything.
Yeah.
But especially back when they had so many retail expansions that were just survivors, I could, if I ever see a good deal, I'll probably pick it up, the Black Plague stuff, but it's because they have those interesting abominations and stuff instead of just survivors like a lot of First Edition was.
Well, two things. One, CMON obviously opened up the Pandora's box with the very first Kickstarter, putting out Dave the Geek, right?
Yeah.
Once they opened that door, you could kind of see the direction they were going to go for the rest of their campaigns. I mean, it's never stopped. It's just gotten more and more and more. But you were talking about organization. One of the nice things that they did with this edition that they hadn't done in the previous 3 Kickstarters is on the character cards, there's little symbols that tell you how to organize them back in the boxes from which they came. So each survivor has a little logo on it to where okay, this goes back in the Huntsman box, this goes back in the Night Pack, this goes back in.
That's what you meant. That's pretty cool.
And that's a neat deal. And don't get me wrong, it can sometimes still lead you astray because some of the miniatures are going to have the same symbols, but not necessarily go in the same boxes. But at least get you in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Where honestly, as far as organization and packaging is where I thought they went wrong was the individual miniature boxes. Having all those little boxes with 1 or 2 miniatures in them. I'm a packaging fanatic, so I keep them all that way. But it is very room intensive as far as you need the storage space. And the Huntsman boxes at least condense that down some. They did do some individual boxes, but not near what they had done in the previous three campaigns. They started realizing, hey, we need to keep all this stuff kind of together and not ask people to have to buy an entire new bedroom just to store this stuff.
And then the second thing that I don't like about Zombicide in general, and it's related, are the special guest boxes. Like it's just, It's just too many extra little things to have to track down and keep. Like, it's obvious why, not nobody, but it's obviously why not many people from the Kickstarter added on all 10 of those extra special guest boxes, because that's $200 more for just a bunch more survivors than you already had, 75 plus from the other stuff. And then it created this weird second market, $250 per box problem.
Yeah, they absolutely should have spent that $200.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Legos, you couldn't have invested your money better.
Right? So there was a crossover pack for Massive Darkness and a crossover pack for Besieged. Now, were those available in this Kickstarter, or were they?
No.
Okay.
No, the Massive Darkness crossover was in the Massive Darkness campaign.
Gotcha.
So that's how you got the Zombicide crossover.
And then the Besieged one was in the Besieged campaign then?
I believe so, but I was never a part of that. So
okay.
But I know it wasn't part of this campaign.
Besieged stuff.
Yeah. Do you happen to have the numbers on the number of survivors from from each of those?
I don't own Besieged. I'm guessing it's 6. It might be
6.
more if there's some. And then as far as Massive Darkness, you're looking at just the core box, which would have been 6 characters plus all the hero monster fight boxes, which I think were 3 miniatures per box. I think there was 4 of those, so maybe 12. On top of the 6 is 18, so maybe some 18 plus characters there.
There's a lot of them.
Don't quote me on those. Don't quote me on those numbers, though.
Okay, well, that sounds like a pretty good estimation. So I have the Besieged ones here. There's 8 of them.
Okay.
And it's funny because for maybe the first time ever, or only time, I don't know. We'll find out on our whole Zombicide journey. But this character, it's hard for me to get Bjorn. What I'm trying to say first time ever is like there's 2 characters of the exact same name. So there's Bjorn from the Besieged pack, and there's Bjorn from the Massive Darkness pack. So yeah, so there's even more survivors out there to get. And then of course, Green Horde comes later, and then White Death later, and then everything's out of control.
It's a complicated setting to collect it.
Well, more I guess a little bit more germane to this Kickstarter. They did before the Kickstarter fulfilled, and then shortly after, also added in a couple of special release characters through either conventions or the game night pack. As well.
That's right.
So they weren't really officially part of this Kickstarter, but they were officially part of the Black Plague overall. Like they came out before Green Horde came out.
That's right. So do you know which ones those were? Do you have that info?
Yeah, you've got Benson, Homer, Bruce, which was in the game night box, and then the Necromancer Eric Summoner.
I thought he was Green Horde time frame. No?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Willow was Green Horde time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So more to track down. Hope everybody's taking notes. There's got to be like people have made Excel sheets and stuff of this a few times over.
Oh yeah,
out there.
If you go to the Discord site, there's lots of people that have Google Docs and all kinds of different ways to break it down.
Yeah. So Survivor, this has been a heck of a Survivor deep dive. Are there any like particular survivors that are favorites that you really want to call out from this whole campaign?
I like Baldric. That's not Kickstarter exclusive, but I think Spellcaster is a very cool ability. I think enchantments are a little underutilized, but it's cool to have an ability that's both a free combat action and also a support thing.
Yeah, Troy and Evil Troy are obvious picks for me. Obviously, if you like Troy from the previous campaigns as Ash, Bruce Campbell's character, you get to play with him again in the fantasy setting, which is perfect. Evil Troy doubles as a necromancer, so you can play him both ways, which is cool. And he's actually got a really good special ability as a necromancer. He's actually pretty darn tough.
I'm surprised they've never done anything that's like just like release a product that's like, here's all the survivors from X setting in Y setting survivor cards. That seems like an easy thing to do.
I have some survivor favorites just like surface level. Hitch, he's He's clearly like the David Bowie from The Labyrinth, one of my favorite movies of all time. As a kid of the 80s. And yeah, it's really cool. I haven't gotten around to painting him yet, but I've got to get that done. I have not painted all of the millions of survivors for this game. And I also really love Danton, who's William Wallace. Mel Gibson is William Wallace from Braveheart. And I like his miniature sculpt more than the artwork because he's got his sword raised overhead. And every time you see him, you have to yell, "Freedom!"
Mm-hmm. Honestly, the only negative thing I can really say about the characters is there's two characters. I guess there's two sets of characters that I think are just really, really similar in their sculpts and looks. The Braveheart guy looks a lot like the guy who's supposed to be from Rob Roy. The miniatures and the artwork and everything just look really, really similar. It's basically, a guy with a beard holding a big sword over his head.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the character who's supposed to be Ned Stark and the character who's supposed to be from Lady Hawk. Those two guys look almost identical. They're blonde guys with black and red capes and, just holding their sword. And they're just really, really similar and hard to tell apart. So that's one negative. And then the second negative, there he is, Gregory.
You're scrolling past it. Can you scroll up a little bit? I just want to give a shout out to Scowl.
Yeah, Batman. He's awesome.
Fantasy Batman. Yeah. All right.
And then the second thing is the characters that they didn't include. So, complaining on the one hand that there's so many characters and then the ones that they missed. With Piper and Gregory there, why no Matthew Broderick, character with that? That just seems kind of a miss. You've got arguably Matthew Broderick is really the star of that movie. And you got those two characters, but not him from Lady Hawk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate when they do that. Like it's painful when they have like kind of a set going and they don't complete the set. It's like, what? Complete the set. Right.
But I do love the Monty Python characters. That I thought that was really cool how they tried to include as many of those as they could. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. They are fun. Like, that's my favorite Monty Python movie. And just seeing them and having them as a set, is cool. I do like that. As far as the guest boxes go, I always appreciate the enemies. Like, I want more enemies. Like, whenever I'm getting more survivors, or if it's Cthulhu Death May Die, we're getting more investigators or, heroes for whatever game. Like, I just want more enemies. I want more enemy variety. More than I want, player character variety.
So this one they really did a good job on. If you compare this to previous Kickstarters, with Prison Outbreak, you were getting 3 different abominations. With Rue Morgue, you were only getting 1 new abomination. With this one, you got 8 new abominations. So, I mean, that's pretty darn good.
And
obviously
this is like the start of when they get really creative with the abominations, and they're kind of one-offs instead of just being like the king of a new type. So that's very cool to see, like, the evolution of that, because now that's what an abomination is. It's like a very unique thing. It's not even always a big bulky zombie anymore.
And they did port over 2 exact zombie types over to this game with the crows and the dogs. In Wolfsburg, they had wolves, which are essentially dogs. And then, of course, the murderer crows is murderer crows. But they also added in a new enemy type that Modern hadn't seen yet, which was zombies that could shoot back at you. With the Deadeye Walkers. And so that was a completely new enemy type. And I think that's a pretty good value add as well.
Took them a long time to get that into Modern even.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't see that until 2nd edition, right? Unless I'm missing something.
Correct. Yeah. And it was only in Fort Hendricks, and they don't work the same as the Deadeye Walkers, but still.
Yeah, let's actually run down like what all these different enemies do. So let's see. I guess starting with the abominations.
I know very little about these abominations.
So they're, I guess starting with the Kickstarter ones, there's like abominables, abominables, abominabeasts rules. And it's cool because they got like a bit of story to them that I haven't read yet. But so there's the let's see, what's first? Abomin Alpha. He's really interesting. He's basically is like a wolf, which they get 3 actions on their activation. So they can attack, or move, or a combination thereof, right?
The Abomina Alpha is worse than that because he turns runners into wolves.
That's right.
The Wolf Abomination gets 3 activations. So he's like basically an abomination that is a dog or wolf. And the Abomina Alpha does that and turns runners into wolves.
That's right. So just when they spawn, right? Not any that are on the board.
Is it Abomina Alpha or is it Abominalpha?
Abominalpha.
It's Abominalpha. Okay.
There's one A in the middle there.
There's only one A.
That's how I read it. Yeah, and make sure, just to be pedantic, like you said 3 activations, but no, it's 3 actions in his activation.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's see, there's Abomina Rat, which is by far the biggest miniature from this game, and probably, yeah, definitely the biggest miniature up to this point in like Zombicide history.
He spawns 1 zone away from the noisiest zone on the board with an open passage linking both zones.
That's right. It's the last one.
So he just pops up closer to you.
That's right.
That's always interesting because it's sometimes very dangerous, the abominations that do that, and sometimes it just means you can kill them faster.
Right.
Yeah, he just shows up somehow. That super huge, disgusting rat. You didn't see him until right now.
He's sneaky.
All right, and then there's the Zombie Bosses pack that has 3 abominations, which I think, if you're thinking about it, or if you're not even thinking about it, you don't have it, you got to get this, and it came out retail, so it should be reasonable. There's the Abominator.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that breaks through walls, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, he breaks through walls. Instead of using doors, he'll just find the shortest path and just break through any walls to get through there. And he'll break open doors too. Mm-hmm. Which will trigger the spawning of that building prematurely, potentially. Actually, even
it'd be funny if he broke through walls but not doors.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, if he that's right. If he breaks through a wall, then he'll also, it's considered a new doorway that anybody can go through.
I would imagine.
Also, that happens first, which means all the zombies in his zone can then flood into that building.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It can be tough.
Yeah. And there's the Abominatroll, who's the tallest, definitely the tallest miniature. Mm-hmm. I think like square footage wise, Abominarats might be bigger. I don't know. What do you think?
Actually, you're forgetting about the dragon.
Yeah. Well, the dragon's not here yet, so we're good.
Dragon yet.
He's safe for now.
He's the tallest by far.
Yeah.
I don't know that he takes up more space because I think his base size is the same as some of the other bigger models. But he definitely is the tallest. He's also the one that will fall over on you the most.
Yes.
He's an absolute great sculpt. I loved painting him. And what makes him a beast is 2 things. One, if he sees you, he gets 3 activations. So that's rough. 2, he can only be killed by dragon fire.
Yeah.
So any of those other special weapons that you find or special skills that you have, too bad. Abominatroll don't care about that. All he cares about is dragon fire.
Yep. You got a survivor that has like a blue +1 damage combat or range or magic, whatever it is. And you're like, I just need a 2 damage weapon and I can take anybody down. Not this guy.
Nope.
Requires dragon fire. Okay. And then the last one is Abomination. And he's the guy with the big twisted, or the big giant arm sticking out.
He's a cool miniature. He's not as dangerous as you might think. He can attack from 1 zone away, which can be bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. And he can perform his attack on survivors in all zones at range 0 to 1. Mm-hmm. So if you have like survivors in his zone and then survivors next to his zone, and then potentially surrounding him on all zones surrounding, he's attacking all of those zones.
He gets a little shockwave. Yeah.
So those are the abominations. Right. I guess
I'm sold. Yeah. I'll
actually
pick that up.
It's funny because Wolf Abomination is in here and wolves are in here. Mm-hmm. By in here, I mean like they're part of the Kickstarter pledges.
First tier.
Yeah.
The Huntsman pack.
So, like, what if you got the Huntsman pack, and therefore you did not get Wolfsburg? Can you just not
Then
really
you
play
have
them?
3 wolves.
Like,
Yeah,
you don't
you're
have
kinda
cards.
screwed. Nope.
I thought that was really odd.
Very quickly run out of. I guess you wouldn't be able to spawn them. I was going to say very quickly run out of minis, but they wouldn't even spawn.
All right. Then there's NPCs, notoriously plagued characters.
I never got a whole lot of usage out of VIPs, so I'm either of you, and I don't have these ones, but do.
So
either of you have any?
VIPs, yeah, VIPs or NPCs. I'd love to throw them in to help balance things, to help make things a little easier, because they're the same as other walkers. Even though they're not standard walkers, it does override in their rules and say when they also get extra activations from extra activation cards. Even though they're not standard walkers, like you go ahead and you do that. And then if you collect, like each time you kill an NPC walker, you gain them as a trophy, basically. And if you collect 5 uniquely sculpted NPC walkers, then you get to pick any vault weapon, right? When I say that out loud, it's like, is that actually correct?
Yep.
That's crazy.
That's correct.
I feel like it should be draw instead of pick. Was it the VIPs? Were they picks or draws? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure VIP was draw, not pick. This is absolutely for sure pick, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a much bigger deal to get a pimp weapon at all in first edition. There's always a vault weapon around now.
Mm-hmm. I think the sculpts for all these are absolutely brilliant. I love the miniatures. We can debate the rules and everything like that, but just the miniatures that came in both boxes and in the Huntsman box, because the Huntsman box actually includes some unique sculpts that you don't get in box 1 and 2, and all of them just have so much character to them. They all almost have their own story. Like you can picture who these people were. They're really, really great sculpts.
They're really.
I do
cool.
really like the story. We talk very little about the lore, but I really like the fluff around VIPs and NPCs. That it's a game that the survivors are playing. That they're like, oh, that's a unique guy. You don't see a whole lot of people in hot dog costumes, so it's worth bonus points because it's a rare encounter.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think that's a cool little way to flesh out the survivors themselves through the zombies.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely love the NPCs because their sculpts are so cool and so unique. And then the Kickstarter exclusives get to be even more so, right? 'Cause you clearly have Snow White as one of those.
Yeah. The gesture guy is just obviously great.
Yeah,
they did a similar thing. There's a lot of unique sculpts in the second edition Kickstarter, but I don't think they had any rules like VIPs.
Also, like in season 1 of Classic Zombicide, where you only get the 2 pimp weapons, and the only way you're ever gaining any more pimp weapons is to get the VIP boxes. That's basically the same thing here. If you're tired of playing with Inferno and the Orcish crossbow, the only way you're getting different VIP or NPC or vault weapons in this game is to get these boxes.
Do you want to talk about vault weapons?
Yeah, like so many things, they seem to overcorrect. Whenever there's clear vault weapons that are the number one choice. I mean, who's not taking the heavy crossbow the first chance they get it? So obviously that really changes the course of the game. If you take that weapon, and there's not a whole lot that balances it back for you, other than the Abominatrol. Otherwise, all abominations now just become 5 extra points you can get every time they pop up. Which is kind of sad that they can't find a middle ground. And the rest of the weapons, there's some fun ones, but there's just no clear choice outside of that.
So the heavy crossbow, I'm just going to read it off real quick. Is range 1 to 2, 2 dice, accuracy 4 better, and it does 3 damage.
3 damage weapons have a history in Zombicide. They never feel like they can quite get the intended balancing of abominations right, because sometimes you have to sit there and search for the bombs, and sometimes you have to it's meaningless. So, I mean, they tried a bunch. They tried concentrated fire. By the time Marvel comes around, they did away with damage numbers completely. But that's definitely a game design point that they went back and forth on how to handle, especially when you start introducing survivors that have +1 damage to certain weapons.
One vault weapon that I found to be kind of broken, like once I played it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is ridiculous, is the Earthquake combat spell. Roll 1 success or more with this combat spell. All actors in the target zone lose their next activation. Lay down their miniatures. It's a 0 to 1 range, 3 dice, 4 better accuracy, and 1 damage. So yeah, you could just, fire this off 1 zone away safely, and if you get at least 1 success, and you will, then you just get to lay everything down, and they skip their activation next turn. It's just too much.
It seems situational. If you're doing it into a big mob, chances are you're going to want to kill that big mob instead of just lay him down.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you're dealing with mobs, you're more worried about miniature control. And it doesn't tell you that you can still leave their zones. It doesn't tell you that you can just walk through their zones.
Oh yeah,
they're laid down. They're still there.
I wasn't doing that. Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a situational spell that, I mean, obviously can come in handy as a escape trouble type situation, like invisibility. Invisibility is very situational as well, in my opinion. So I just don't think it's near as powerful or the no-brainer as the heavy crossbow is.
I didn't think it was going to be no-brainer until I actually started using it. And then it was like, wow, this is just crowd control extreme. And
there is something to be said about crowd control versus the ability to take down abominations, because that's definitely, I feel like, especially later in the game, if you have, 1 or 2 Dragon's Fires ready to use, everybody's been searching for a while. It's a much bigger issue. I mean, obviously you could also use those on the hordes, but the ability to save them more can kind of become cool. Because you can expect to only deal with a handful of abominations per game. In the campaign we're going to talk about later, there was intentionally more, but outside those.
So the King's Mace is pretty cool. If you've played Massive Darkness, you might have heard of this before, although it happened here before Massive Darkness. The King's Mace is neat because it's kind of their first stab at Brothers in Arms. So it's a damage 2 weapon that hits on a 3+, and you get an extra die for everybody that's in your zone. It also might be everybody within line of sight 1 zone away. So if you're the kind of player that keeps your party tight, you're going to get a lot of swings at a 3+ killing brute fatties. So that's a pretty good one for your melee people. And the Dwarvish Shield, I think it's called, is nice if you really are worried about taking hits from abominations, because it's the one piece of armor that allows you to save against abominations. But it's still just a shield.
It's the worst.
Armor in general is cool, but I've never gotten a whole lot of use out of it.
Yeah, like I like that there's that provides variety in the vault deck.
Yeah.
And like, for better or for worse, it's like the worst thing, but maybe it could be fun in that kind of like, oh no way, where it's like, I really wanted to get whatever weapon and we happen to shuffle in, this one into that vault.
Yeah.
So it's cool for that reason. But otherwise, if you're picking because you're, killing NPCs, then you're never going to pick that one over the others, I think.
No, it wouldn't. It certainly wouldn't be in my top 3. Again, if you're that person that likes to play the paladin, the guy that rushes in to try to save everybody else, you might want that. But otherwise, I don't really know why you'd want it.
So what do you think about playing? I forgot to ask earlier. What do you think about playing with NPCs? Do you like to play with them?
I don't normally play with them. I played with them in the campaign, which I will definitely expound upon when we start talking about the campaign we played. But in a normal game, I don't normally put them in a game. As much as I love their miniatures, I don't normally put them in a game.
Any thoughts on the necromancers? Any cool necromancers?
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think Evil Troy has got a really cool mechanic. He's basically, if you kill him, he can come back. He goes back to the starting spawn point. So you have to figure out how to deal with him to get rid of him permanently. And the Blackheart is pretty tough just because he's kind of like a brute fatty. He takes 2 damage to kill, so he can be a little bit tough to deal with. And like pretty much all the necromancers, they all, no matter what they are, share the same targeting priority as far as being able to hide behind everybody. So they can be tough to deal with.
Yeah, I really like having the necromancer variety. More enemy varieties always win with me. And yeah, having the different unique mechanics for these guys. Thanks again to Alex, our guest on last episode, because I totally used his house rule of having like a side deck of abominations and of necromancers, and then when you just draw the regular card for necromancer or abominations from the regular enemy spawn deck,
you just kind of like do the abomination deck.
Yeah. So like what Alex did, and he explained this on our last episode, is when you get like a standard abomination or a standard necromancer card from your spawn deck, and then you roll, and 1 to 3 you're just going to go the standard one. 4 to 6 you get to draw from the special deck of like the unique necromancers and the more unique abominations. So I did that, and that was fun. I really enjoyed doing it that way. So thanks again, Alex.
Nice.
I don't know if I have any particular favorites. I really like all of them, having the variety there. The more necromancers, the merry. I'd rather have more and more and more of them, honestly.
I think I do prefer abomination variety to necromancer variety. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I think abomination variety is the easier thing to go with, just because they're a bigger target. You're more scared of them. The necromancers are generally easier to kill than abominations. You don't need anything special to kill them. With determined effort, you can deal with them. So I would say overall abominations are more interesting to fight against. But again, if you get tired of playing against the same necromancer, it's nice to throw them in.
They're kind of like opposites in a way, where like abominations add in something to run from. Necromancers are something to chase down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so it's
nice.
there's only so strong they can make them without like interfering with that kind of gameplay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well put. Deadeye walkers. So like every time I've ever seen, I'm hyperbolic as usual. Every time I've ever seen anyone say, what should I get to go with my Black Plague? Everybody always says, the first thing everybody always says is get Deadeye walkers. And the reason is because, they're a walker, they're 1 damage, 1 experience. They're the same thing as walkers, except we talked about this earlier, just specifically they attack whenever they activate while having line of sight on a survivor or more at range 0 to 3.
I like it as a general mechanic because when it comes to like a whole broad zombie types, and obviously these are just walkers, it's not a whole new variety the way first edition always did. But it's definitely a unique mechanic, which unique zombie types that aren't abominations do kind of have limited space for. And obviously this one gets reused just like Berserkers and Toxics. In Invader, they have the Spitters. In Fort Hendricks, they bring back a similar thing that works pretty differently.
So Deadeye walkers are really cool. The miniatures are absolutely beautiful. I love the poses. The bows in their hands are neat. Their threat, though, can be minimized. They're just like walkers, same targeting priority. They're easy enough to kill. And what makes them really not quite as dangerous is they only get 6 spawn cards. So they don't come up that often. So it's easy to deal with them. It's going to be rare that you're ever going to run out of them. So you don't have to worry about extra activations with them. If they shared, say, a same targeting priority as runners, then I might be scared of them because they could hide behind their bigger friends. But other than that, they're cool. Are they the end all be all? I don't think so, but they are neat.
Yeah, they had a lot of great variety, I think. But I was also feeling surprised, like they only have so few spawn cards, so like they don't come up much. I wish they would have given us more, so at least you could tune the deck to have more or less of them. I think they're most dangerous when they spawn in a building. That's when they're most dangerous, especially very early. Right. You're running around, and you're opening the first couple of doors, and you're not really super well equipped with your equipment yet. And then there they are. And it's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to deal with them? Kind of a thing. So yeah, I think they're interesting and they're great. And they aren't like, oh my God, this changes the game completely. It changes the game a little bit, and it's good.
I'd argue, on the other hand, that the murder of crows really makes you think about stuff when they're around. They also don't show up a whole lot, but the movement. I don't know if we described it. They move 3 spaces per action, so they can really sneak up on you.
Crows, to me, while not as dangerous as dogs because of the one action, end up being mainly speed bumps and can really slow down your plans because they get to you so quick. And while they might not damage you, they require you to spend your extra actions killing them or dealing with them to be able to move on. So they feel to me almost like, the little terrier dogs that are nipping at your ankles. It's like you just want to kick them off, but you can't because there's so many of them. They're just like rats or something. They're not particularly tough, but they're quite nuisance. I would say they're more of a nuisance than the Deadeye walkers.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't really think any of the zombie types are, at least in this one, are like really. I wouldn't put them like on the level of berserkers where they like really change how you approach combat. Outside of some of the abominations.
While we're not covering it in depth right now, the dogs to me are the number one thing that would change how I play the game. Are the wolves?
The wolves.
Yeah.
Let's see. Murder of Crows, I want to talk about real quick. So, I think James, before, like you mentioned, not on the podcast, but like how not to like build your deck kind of thing. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I'll mention again maybe, but like for me, that big time are the crows. So it comes with way too many cards for way too few miniatures. And the game ends up devolving into how do we deal with these crows? Because there's only 15 models, only 15 miniatures, and there's 12 spawn cards, and they're all the same. 2 at blue, 3 at yellow, 4 at orange, and 5 at red. And you're going to run out and get extra activations from them.
And they are very dangerous with those extra activations. Yeah.
It's like, what were they thinking? Just mathematically, right? Like, yeah,
I think
insane. So you have to use less spawn cards.
Yeah. I stand by that Zombicide is best when you are modifying the spawn deck, at least in some capacity, especially if you're adding extra stuff in there, because all the invader extras also came with like a bunch of spawn cards. And if you don't want, half of the zombies to be some kind of special edition, you have to, and really that just happens in any edition. If they add enough additional zombies, if you want them to feel additional and special instead of just part of the horde,
yeah,
I have to limit it a little bit.
I just feel so strongly that this is out of balance. Like it had to have been a mistake. Like somebody got a number wrong and shipped it out, and it's like, oops, because I've never experienced across all Zombicide something that was this disparate of like just a balance miss, a balance miss.
The only 2 things I could add to this is one, maybe they think because they're going to get to you so quickly that you're going to be able to deal with them, so you're not worrying about running out of miniatures. And then second, probably number 3 or number 4 biggest complaint during this entire Kickstarter was that they did not provide just the spawn cards, because so many people had come from season 3 Kickstarter that had already bought these models, and they're the exact same model. And they wanted just to be able to buy the spawn cards without having to pay for the box of crows, which they did not provide these cards just by themselves.
All right. Game night kits. I don't even know what that is.
That's where you get the Mad Morgan miniature. Basically, his name was Bruce, but he's supposed to be Mad Morgan from the Willow movie. So it's like the game night boxes from the season 3 Kickstarter.
I can picture that. I think I know what you're talking about.
Where you got basically the same miniature 6 times or whatever it was.
Yeah. We have promo survivors.
Yeah, we touched on those. You got Benson, who's supposed to be the Orlando Bloom character from what was it, Kingdom of Heaven, and the Homer miniature, which was supposed to be Maximus for Russell Crowe miniature from Gladiator. And the Eric Sumner, who's supposed to be Elton John, was a necromancer.
What? No, it's Eric Summer from the Dice Tower.
He looks like Elton John to me.
No.
Can we pull up a picture? Let the comments decide.
No, he's there. He was a Dice Tower exclusive, and there's one of the main hosts. You. Yeah, one of the main hosts.
He looks like Elton John to me.
That's fair. One of the main hosts of the Dice Tower is Eric Summer. And they made him a miniature, a survivor. He's a necromancer.
He's a necromancer.
Eric Summer.
Does Eric Summer look like Elton John?
I guess so.
We need to get a side-by-side comparison here.
Yeah, let's.
Well, I hope the Dice Tower guy, if he hears this, isn't insulted. Hopefully he likes Elton John, because I certainly don't mean to insult him, but he looked like Elton John to me. And he looks like, he's a musician singing. So, yeah.
Oh, sure. I misspoke. His name is not Eric Summer. I think that's what I said. It's Eric Summerer. And
that's even closer.
Yeah.
That's even closer.
Okay. Right. Okay, I'm bringing it up.
All right.
Well, okay.
Okay, yeah, so here we have Eric the Summoner. And here is Eric Summerer.
I agree. There's definitely a likeness.
All right.
Is literally made for this because it was a Dice Tower, it was a Dice Tower crowdfunding exclusive because Dice Tower has their crowdfunding every year for their show, their YouTube and podcast and everything that they do, and they've done that a couple times. I think maybe this is the only one that they did for like a likeness of one of those characters in Zombicide. They've done those in other games though too, like the Simon games. Yeah.
They've also done equipment cards too, right? As part of their Kickstarters is like the Ice Blast and
I think
the Gatling gun from Modern. Because I know in this latest one that just came out today, they don't have anything for Zombicide in it.
It's funny, this Eric Summoner art, he even kind of almost has glasses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one I found really interesting. And just so if people are part of a Kickstarter and think that Simon does not listen to their backers and doesn't make any changes throughout the process, they actually do. And in this one, it all revolved around the bases that we've all grown to love that we put on these miniatures, the different colored bases. When they first put out what bases they were going to use, they looked like the counter base pack, Ryan, that you showed us earlier in the campaign. If you notice, those bases are what I describe as like the donut bases. Basically, they have a hole in the middle and aren't flat.
Yeah.
And so that's what they put out as the kind of bases that they were going to put on the miniatures. And everybody went up in arms because they weren't going to be compatible with previous classic modern figures. And so what they did was they came up with this idea of a solid base ring that had 3 little clips that you had to clip your miniature in. And I found that to be a really interesting design. I would almost even go so far as to call it overly complicated. And for whatever reason, the masses hated that design and railed against it. And so once again, Simon changed course and came out with the flat round bases that we know came with the game. And of course, they had to put in there that they could not guarantee they would fit every single previous miniature. And that's fair. And that's the entire reason why when these started coming out, what my group chose to do, because we absolutely love the new dashboards. We've talked about this before, and love the new colored bases and the pegs that went along with it. So our solution to get these to fit every base is we just put tiny little magnets on the bases of our miniatures and tiny little magnets on these little colored bases. So now we didn't have to worry about whether or not we were going to break off miniatures' legs or ankles or twist them or bend them, or they would or wouldn't fit. They just pop right in with the magnet and pop right off with the magnet. And while it does take some work and some money in magnets, it's worked out to be a really great solution.
Oh, right. There's also this expansion called Wolfsburg. Speaking of, I think I hear Schmedley's wolf walking around back there. No, it's all good. It's not too bad. But yeah, so there's Wolfsburg, and part of our mission on this whole podcast, this whole thing, is to really give every big box standalone and or expansion its own episode. So we're going to do a whole episode just on Wolfsburg, because there's a lot to get into there. But just real quick, light dusting of Wolfsburg. It comes with 2 more game tiles, 22 zombie wolves miniatures. Wolves. it's with the Z on the end. It's got 4 more survivors, and also 4 more plastic dashboards, because you need more of those. Because there's more with the hero box. There's so many plastic dashboards. Mm-hmm. And your usual stuff, the car, the plastic trackers and the rule book, of course, with new quests in there, and a bunch more cards. A bunch more equipment cards that's really going to add variety to your games. And I think that and a wolf abomination, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the stuff it comes with. I think it's a great addition. But and a little bit of gatekeeping, I don't know if I want to say much more than that, is because, wait for our Wolfsburg episode. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing included with the Kickstarter that we were planning on touching on, at least, was these campaigns. So there were 2 campaigns. One of them involved Wolfsburg. So we were going to save that for the Wolfsburg episode. Speaking of, I have the wrong one open, we discovered.
The Places of Interest campaign, I think, was a better thought out idea of what to do than their first stab at a campaign. I liked the direction they were going with it. They basically talked about some of the things that you would need, what you would get by playing the campaign. So the main 2 things that you were going to get was, if your character reaches red, then they get to hold on to a piece of equipment going from one quest to the next. And then, of course, each quest ended with
specifically a vault weapon, right?
Yes. And then also, if you finished each quest had its own reward that you could then go on and use in the next quest.
Yeah, that was cool because last time we covered in our first edition review, Kickstarter review, we did, or I played through the campaign in that, and it had a really cool novelty thing of a big, larger map, and you're kind of going from one to the next. And I kind of missed that here, but it was ultimately really a novelty, a cool novelty. But I think
that was really cool.
Yeah. But I feel like this one was kind of better planned and better balanced. I didn't get to play all of it, unfortunately. But
yeah, I did 3 missions, I think. I did like the one-time bonuses that you get, because every mission you kind of get it a different way. It's kind of the prototype. Eventually, when they did proper campaign boxes, they have like achievements that kind of change the way certain later missions work, and it kind of felt like a prototype to that, or the XP and stuff. That was very cool. The first one was you get a free dragon fire if you pass a certain trial in the first mission after a certain period.
Oh, another thing I don't think we mentioned is that it says that you can play these quests in any order you want to.
That is also unique, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You can it's 5 quests. You can play them in any order you want. It might be obvious, I'll just play 1 through 5, in order. But it can help with replayability because you're wow, it actually would be great.
I think recommend playing quest 1 first, just because the one-time bonus of having a Molotov on standby is especially good, and these are intended to be harder missions. I didn't really see that. Did either of you guys struggle?
Past the first quest, no.
All right, so there's quest 1, the Temple of Fire. It's medium. They say it's a medium difficulty, 4+ survivors, 180 minutes. A fire god was worshipped in this remote village. I remember rumors saying that its priests could breathe fire. I didn't meet any, and it's too bad. That could have been very useful. Against an abomination, for example. Unfortunately, the temple is closed and locked. Let's find the key and cleanse this place. I know a ritual. We don't want to meet any fire-breathing zombies, do we? So it's a 6-tile layout, and one of the rooms is on fire, which is cool because like we get to use the fire token. Really,
finally
for the first
in the
time.
later missions we finally used the barrier token. We had a whole conversation about that. Last episode.
Yeah, I think we more so refer to it as a portal token, but in here we're seeing it.
Yeah,
as a barrier.
They call it a barrier token.
Magical barrier. Yeah, so the fire token. You got to enter the temple and purify it. So you got to find the colored objectives, their keys to get into the colored doors, that usual kind of thing. But you got to perform the ritual
stuff in the first half.
Yeah, go through the zone containing the fire token until you receive the fire blessing. And the fire blessing...
that's after the one-time bonus.
Yeah, after the temple's been purified, roll a die each time a survivor goes through the fire token zone. On an even result, nothing happens. On an odd result, the survivor receives the fire blessing as a single-use bonus. A survivor can have more than one fire blessing at a time. They can use it as dragon fire. And it actually...
dragon fire.
Yeah, it doesn't affect its creator. So you can throw it in your own zone.
You can nuke your own zone.
Yeah, the 0 to 1 will come in key later on.
Yeah. So how did the mission go, or how did the quest go for you, Schmedley?
It went fine. There was mostly when we first opened the temple, there was quite a lot of things in there. We had, I think, 2 double spawns over the course of populating that, and it was a little trouble clearing it out, but that was really the only sticking point. I mean, obviously, after you purify it, getting the blessing is just a matter of waiting and sometimes defending the entrance. Other than just there being a big building, which that's just kind of something that was always an issue in first edition. There aren't a whole lot of big buildings in Black Plague. Is something I've noticed revisiting it.
How'd it go for you, James?
Let me give you a little bit of setup first. My wife and I played through all 5 of these quests, and the characters that we played with, I played with Lady Faye and Paul and James. My wife played with Grom and Thalia and Troy. And I have a pretty good handle on what I think makes a difficult Zombicide deck and what makes an easy one. But for this one, I wanted to throw all of my assumptions and pre-ideas out the door. And what I chose to do is I basically threw everything that comes in the Huntsman level into the deck. So all 24 NPC cards, all the abominations from the Zombie Bosses Abomination Pack. And then we chose to play with a different necromancer each quest. So only one different kind of necromancer in each quest. And then we limited ourselves to the characters that came in the Huntsman box. And of course, played with the Deadeye Walkers. So basically, we threw everything in there because there is no real rules that, CMON gives you or Guillotine Games gives you on how to add all this stuff in. They just say, you can add it to your deck and play. So that's what we did. We took their advice. We just threw everything in the deck. And the first quest for us was pretty darn difficult. We absolutely play with multiple abominations on the board at the same time. We don't have any special rules for that. So our biggest challenges came in whenever we would have the troll and the standard abomination and abominator all on the board at the same time. Slowed us down big time. It took us 23 turns to win the quest. We ended up only getting 2 people with the blessing, and we did not end up going red with anybody, so nobody hung on to any of the vault weapons that we got. So we found it to be challenging, but mainly it was just being slowed down by early on in the game, having 3 abominations on the board at the same time and finding ways to deal with them. So our obvious answer was, it's a lot quicker to kill 5 NPCs than it is to go find a Dragon Ball and Torch. So once we did that and found the heavy crossbow, things got a lot easier.
Nice.
Well, yeah. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah. So for me, I played it solo. I played with 6 survivors. I So I wanted to bling out my game as much as possible with all the, the official stuff. So I threw pretty much everything in there, except one thing I knew that I did not want to do would be to throw all of the NPC cards in the deck. So I figured that would make it actually way too easy. And this is where I learned, like, oh my God, there are way too few Crows miniatures. I actually like lost because of that. And then I looked and I was like, this can't be right. And so I like went back and I found like how many crows, and somehow I was missing crows. I was missing like 4 crows, which was just the right amount that I needed that gave extra activations that killed everybody. So I had to like roll back a few things once I found those miniatures, because I had them spread out. There was, I don't know why I had some here and some there and some unpainted, and it was kind of a mess. But anyway, I got my proper number of crows, into the game, and that fixed it. And so I rolled back and I didn't end up losing, but I did win that first quest. 2 survivors died. And the survivors that I played with, I wanted to play with ones that I had painted, because I haven't painted all of the fantasy survivors yet. And they were Massive Darkness ones. So I had Elias, Mila, Azrael, and Whisper. Oh, those were the ones that had the fire busting at the end. I also had Silence and Miriam. Silence and Whisper, they look like they're brother sister. They're both like the same exact looking rogue, except they're brother and sister. Anyway, they're really cool. I like them. And so yeah, it was really fun and interesting. Like, wow, this is how you play Zombicide Fantasy. Like, this is how you completely fall in love with this game, is having all of the stuff. Like you've got your walkers and your fatties and your abominations and your runners, and you've got crows and you got deadeye walkers and you've got wolves, and you've I think that's probably it. And like just the variety of abominations and a variety of necromancers and all of it. So yes, having all this variety, like this is what God intended for this game. Or any higher power, if you were, but yeah, so this is the way. And so yeah, I'm glad I left out, like I only did one NPC's deck, or like one NPC set's worth, so like 12 cards instead of the 24. And I'm not glad that I had all of the crows cards, because it turned into this is a crows management game now. It just took over. That was a little bit unfortunate. And so I tuned it for the next quests. And I added the Wolfsburg equipment to the deck, and I put in all the vault cards in. And speaking of vault cards, so there's no vaults in any of these quests. Is that right? I only played the first 3. There's
that's why you need to put in the NPCs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really? I just figured getting to red was the only intended way to get vault weapons.
Quest 2. Does anybody want to read that one off?
So yeah, Skulls at Skulls and Bones Tavern. Just the name of this place is enough to pay a visit. If it wasn't for a necromancer's lair before the zombies, it is now. We scouted the area and found that a ritual was being performed. It can't be good. We must stop this. So you just have to go to 2 places and stop 2 rituals and then leave. When you enter the magic barrier zone, which we finally get to use, you remove a token and draw a card from the abomination deck, which is a thing now. We have the abomination deck. I had no idea it showed up this early in Zombicide. In my playthrough, I had to make a weird one compared to probably what you guys had, since I didn't want to use Wolfsburg or Green Horde. So my abomination deck was Pharaoh Eddie, Samurai Eddie, and Barik from the comic book.
Awesome.
That's great.
The Eddies from the Iron Maiden packs.
So it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Especially Pharaoh Eddie, because he's one of the ones that doesn't move and just buffs everything around. So you have to go all the way around back to his spawn point to take him out. I wasn't sure if I put him in the barrier zone, but I wasn't sure how to interact those 2 mechanics.
That's cool. I love that you worked with what you had. And you had some cool stuff. I would never have thought of that.
I didn't want to spoil the Wolfsburg stuff.
Well, for my wife and I, we overthought this one, and that's probably my fault. Seeing that green door was kind of a red herring. I saw the green door, and my first thought is, okay, we got to go start looking for these objectives so we can get in there. So we opened up the first big room that had an objective, That cost us an extra 2 turns. And then when we started, it wasn't the green objective. I was looking at the board and I thought to myself, wait a minute, we don't need a green objective to get in here to do what we need to do. We can just walk through any of these doors. So this is where the quest kind of started to break down for us, because we had 2 people with the fire achievement, whatever that was, the blessing achievement. So we just set both of our characters up, walked in, killed the abominations, and then walked to the exit. We finished it in 10 turns. I think we could have finished it in 8 if I hadn't been enamored with that green door. So
doors are kind of weird cases for the colored doors, because like you said, one is just completely unnecessary, and the other you can just walk up and open, the blue one. There's no blue objective in this mission.
Yeah, I think this is where the quests start kind of breaking down for me. Once again, it only taking us 10 turns. Obviously, nobody went red. And at that point, we're like, well, we don't really even need vault weapons, to win these quests. So kind of who cares about that?
We had 4 survivors with Dragon's Fire. So we used 2 of them. We knew we weren't going to get through the whole campaign. We're like, we might as well also just immediately destroy the abominations.
Ryan, did you find this one to be a challenge?
No, I think this was maybe, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's the easier one of them, but no, I think one was easier. This one was not so much hard as it just kind of was like, I was just kind of carefully, going through. So yeah, I went through that big building that's just to the left of the survivor starting point, because I wanted to be able to search, while I was making my way through hordes. But yeah, you could have skipped that. You could have just gone down the street and then, into the big building.
Yep.
We didn't open any of either of the other buildings.
So yeah, that was
or any
kind
of
of
the
a
3.
waste.
I didn't even notice that little one in the corner.
Yeah, the little one. But like any Zombicide game, you gotta find somewhere to kind of park or half park until you find good enough gear until you're ready to go, and especially like opening a large building and all that kind of good stuff.
It is also a pretty big building, yeah.
Yeah. But I forgot to mention earlier that so I just happened to pick Massive Darkness survivors based on who looked cool. And one of them, Whisper, she has the blue skill of +1 damage on melee. So all he needed to do is get her a 2 damage weapon, and she could be my person, to take out any abominations that would show up. So that's exactly what I did. So I got into the big building and, got that, everybody fended off the hordes while that one person went in and killed those abominations in those magic barrier spots. And so, it was a little careful, kind of tricky and a bit tedious to get all that done. I should have just used those fire blessings, but I was hoarding them. Whenever I play Skyrim or any video game, I'm always hoarding all of the stuff. I never use it.
Because they were consumable, yeah.
Yeah. I never use consumables. I'm one of those players. And
I don't think I said what the one-time bonus for this mission was.
Oh yeah. What is it?
Yeah, I also don't quite remember.
Let's see.
If you didn't take any wounds, you got an instant regen.
Yeah, and again, this quest, I learned my lesson with the crows, and I pulled out 4 of the cards. I felt like that might be a good balance in it, and it seemed like it was. Yeah. All right, quest 3.
All Along the Belfry. This one's very hard. 4+ survivors, 180 minutes. It is sometimes hard to tell when a spectacular action is heroic, stupid, or both. That's the case here. Someone, somehow, managed to trap several abominations in the town's belfry. We've already heard about single abominations trapped in a closed space, but several? This is unbelievable. It's also unfortunate as necromancers keep coming with their hordes to free these beasts. This is getting old and we need to stop it. So today, we zombicide everything. Just don't think too much about the abominations. Hey, I think I just found the way to be a hero. Objectives: kill the abominations. You win the game as soon as the abomination deck is exhausted. See special rules, and there's no abominations on the board. Your reward for this one was survivors who killed an abomination receive a single-use bonus at the end of the quest, Ironclad Charm. A survivor may use it at any time, but not during an action resolution to get the Ironclad skill until the next ending phase.
Yeah, the one-time bonus is outside they definitely go downhill after the Dragon's Fire as far as potency. Still cool. So yeah, nothing much. I mean, I had all the eddies again, and they were interesting. We only had two. We only had two Dragonfires left, and we used two of them. So getting rid of the other abomination, which I believe the last one was Mummy Eddie, was a little harder, especially because he likes to keep coming back from his sarcophagus. But other than that, overall it was fine. We did use one instant regen because Nelly almost died.
I like this one a lot better than the last one. This one took us 26 turns to complete. We did go red with everybody, mainly because of the number of objectives and abominations that you could kill. So there was just a natural amount, a lot of points to gain experience on. And it was fun. My wife and I, we like games where we're stuck killing lots of zombies. So we had a good time with it. The abominations weren't that difficult. What basically it kind of ended up being is we went around to all the houses, opened up as many of them as we could at blue, and then waited to take any of the objectives so we wouldn't go up. And then once we got as much as we could open and got yellow, we started taking objectives, opening up the rest of the rooms, finding the vault weapons that we wanted, along with some dragon bile and torch, because we knew we were going to have to deal with 4 abominatrolls. And we just basically set up next to the portal where the abominations were at. And then each turn one would come out, somebody would go kill it, and everybody else would deal with the rest of the zombies on the board. And it just kind of went on with that until we could get through all the, I guess we had 12 abomination cards we went through to complete the mission.
For me, this was a really fun quest. I love the layout of this. Something about like all of these small buildings and all of these roads is just really cool, especially with the mix of enemy types and like even more especially with Deadeye Walkers, because there's some tricky stuff they can get up to in this particular quest and layout and where the spawn zones are. And yeah, like if you're not really careful, you're gonna get hit. they're gonna throw some. You're gonna get some arrows chunked into your flesh. So yeah, this was a totally a fun time. So my big, however, aside from like kind of really loving this quest and the layout and all of that, is like this was a 4 to 5 hour ish game for me as a solo player. It was exhausting. It wasn't all in one sitting. I think it was like 3 different sessions, just because I kind of get time in here and there when I can. The last session was the longest one, and it would have been much, much longer actually if I didn't just call it. So yeah. I did this kind of funny thing. I sort of broke everything too, because I was like, you know what? I know that I'm not going to get to play all of these quests to finish this campaign based on my life and schedule at the time, and being sick and all that. So I was like, I'm just gonna pick different, survivors for this and just play it out that way. Just so I can have a variety of survivors to have played that I haven't ever played and that I can talk about on the show. And so I also cheated by playing it for this. So like, I basically just treated this quest as a one-off, right? So I didn't carry over any of like the fire blessings or any of that. I thought about it, but I did not. And it was still fun. And here's where I really kind of cheated by tuning my survivors. I was amazed to find, because I'm not as familiar with these, that there are well over 6 survivors on their blue that has a +1 damage.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I picked 3 blue +1 damage melee characters, and I picked 3 blue +1 damage ranged characters.
Oh, actually, one magic?
One of them's magic and the other 2 are ranged. So that was, let's see, for the melee +1 damage melee, blue guys are Black Current, that really big guy. He's from one of the guest boxes. Redcap Rodney and Brickborn, they're all guest box survivors, special guest box survivors. And then Milo is the +1 damage magic character, who's a special guest box. Genevieve is +1 damage ranged, and her body slot holds a crossbow. She's a special guest survivor. I can't tell you which box any of these are from off the top. And then Sylvan is a massive darkness crossover +1 damage ranged on blue guy. So I was like, okay, I'm going to fight all of the abominations. It's way too much. That's why I had to call it. Yeah, that's why I had to call it, because I don't even know how many that is. Like 30 plus probably cards in my abomination deck. I was like, I'm going to get all of these guys.
4, yeah,
all you need to do is give them each a 2 damage weapon, and then I'll be able to just completely mow down these abominations every round. I was like, it's going to be great. And it wasn't. It wasn't, because I had to go round this board. By the way, I played this quest 3 times. I died the first 2 times. First time, I made terrible bonehead mistakes. Second time, I was very, very unlucky with the card spawn. And then third time is when I got to actually play it all the way through. So that was even more hours for me to play this damn thing. And so anyway, for goodness sakes, you guys, like, I had to go through every single building, and the last one had the blue objective on it. Like, oof, that is rough. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buildings with objectives on them. And I got the last one, the 9th one had the blue objective that can then finally open up that magic barrier so I could start getting 30 plus abominations out that I'd have to mow down.
This is pretty rough. I think we got it on our 2nd. You mentioned your time constraints, and I had very similar ones, which is why I only did 3, except I was doing it yesterday. So I didn't really have a whole lot of time to begin with.
That's wild. That's wild. Is it?
But
I don't know the math. Like, does every abomination have 12 cards in their deck?
4. It's 4 per abomination.
Okay.
Then why did I have such a large deck?
Oh, you were fighting things multiple times?
Yeah.
That's what I did. If we were playing whatever abominations we were playing, we put all their cards in the abomination deck. That's why it took us 12 extra turns to win, because you have to wait each turn.
The rule said 3 plus. I figured that meant. Oh no, it does say set apart all spawn cards for at least 3 extra. Okay, I played it wrong.
Oh, that's 12 cards.
I thought it was 1 each.
So then I guess it would be 24 cards if I'm using all the abominations.
If you're using 6, yeah.
Okay, math.
It's supposed to be wow. That's way. That just sounds tedious. That's way more than I thought you were doing.
The problem with that, Ryan, is if you're under time constraints, you're just adding 24 turns to the game.
Yeah, you're right. And I just wasn't thinking about it. It's just like,
so that's so we both stopped at mission 3, but James, you played all of them, right?
I did.
You have any thoughts on 4 and 5?
I can definitely talk about 4 very quickly. It's not even worth reading through.
It does look a lot smaller.
Honestly, it was really bad. As I said, in mission or quest 3, we all had vault weapons. So we started off with really no reason to even search. We finished the game in 6 turns.
Wow.
We beat the game in 6 turns.
There are vaults.
It just wasn't, but you don't put vault weapons in there.
Oh, okay.
And it just wasn't very, I don't know, even if we didn't have vault weapons, obviously it would have taken us longer than 6 turns to win, but I don't know that would have been.
That's weird.
Would have been that. Well, that's the only way you can get around the board, because you have to clear the streets to win the game. And so that's the only way. Potential. It just didn't work out for us. So quest 4 was the worst of the 5 for sure. Quest 5 was more interesting. Quest 5 was the Dark Anchor. So this one was kind of interesting because you start with 5 abominations on the board. So that one, necromancers seem to use this place to hold their most terrible undead minions, abominations. They are standing there waiting for their master. With some kind of dark magic, necromancer make these monsters stand still. They don't move, even if they sense us in their vicinity. It could be a great occasion to deal a major blow. Anything that can irritate necromancers is worth the effort. So this was a very hard mission, 4+ survivors, 180 minutes. Your objective is to kill the abominations. You win the game. As soon as there are no more abominations on the board. So we did not keep our vault weapons from the previous game because it took us 6 turns. I don't even know if hardly anybody went yellow, much less red. Right. So we started off with and also we had already used our fire blessings in the second mission, so we were starting off with basically what we could find. What made this mission the most difficult for us was this, as I said before, each quest we changed out the necromancer type to be a different kind of necromancer, and this one is when we had Evil Troy. And Evil Troy is a pain in the butt, because if you don't kill him with Dragonfire, then he goes back to the starting spawn zone and then just starts all over again, right? So you're constantly having to push him back, basically, manage him until you can find a torch in Dragon Bile. And of course, you want to keep that stuff for the 5 abominations that you're about to deal with. So we used the exact same tactic we did in the first quest. We killed enough NPCs till we could get the heavy crossbow, found a couple of torches in vials, and then opened up the door and dealt with everything that was inside. So it took us 13 turns to finish this quest. We didn't open up half the buildings. I think maybe we opened up 2.
There's quite a few buildings.
Yeah, but you don't need to open them. You don't need to open them all. So it was fun. I would say overall, this was a better campaign than their first one from the season 1 Kickstarter. And the things that I learned is you don't just want to put everything in a deck. Maybe you should actually think about what you put in your deck and tune it to the difficulty that you want to play, because throwing everything in there doesn't make it harder. And the comments I was making earlier about the Deadeye Walkers, so you've got 12 NPC cards, however many 12 extra abomination cards. I'm sorry, 24 NPC cards, because there's 2 boxes worth. Yeah. So then you put in 6 Deadeye Walker cards. Guess what? You don't see Deadeye Walkers very often in a deck that big. So
one more thing I did notice with the campaign, sorry not to interrupt you, it's just before we're done with it. On that last mission, the one-time bonus that it said, just seeing it now, was +1 damage against abominations, which, like we said before, some of the other ones weren't that good. So that's just like further reason to not just play them in order, because that's really good for some of those other missions. There's a lot of abominations in this campaign. It's a very abomination-y campaign.
My advice to anybody who hasn't played through these quests or hasn't played them in so long they don't remember them is play them in random order. Roll a die or something and then play the quest that way, as opposed to just going through in order. Then that way you're not always necessarily getting the most beneficial bonus for the next quest, because I kind of feel like the 1-2 punch of quest 1 and quest 2 were just kind of natural. You get an easy way to kill abominations in your zone. What do you have to do in the next quest? Kill abominations in your zone. Yeah. So I would say play these randomly. And the other thing I would recommend, most of these quests say 4+ survivors, which I find interesting because I never pay attention to that number, as I'm always playing with 6 survivors.
Yeah, I think outside of superheroes, I've never done 4.
Maybe try this campaign with only 4 survivors and see how far you get. That might really change the difficulty level of playing these quests, because other than some of them being long, none of them were particularly hard.
I did mention at the beginning there's a short blurb about how difficult these missions are, and I was wondering halfway through when I saw it was 4+, if that's why they listed that because we called that out in first edition, that all the missions in the book said 4+. Are we still doing that in Black Plague, or have we gone to 6 now?
Well, in Black Plague, the tutorial in the first quest, I know the tutorial for a fact is 4+, but all the rest of them are 6+.
Oh, they are 6+. Okay.
Yeah, all the rest of them are 6+.
I thought that was pretty first edition exclusive to have the variable survivor counts until we get to like Marvel. But so that was surprising to see in this campaign.
So James, right. You were saying about like tuning.
We talk about the web quests.
I'm more fascinated. I'm fascinated to hear more about James's deck tuning.
Oh, okay. So keep in mind, I'm also talking about Green Horde when I talk about this. But what I like to do is I like to theme games, coming from a background of playing a lot of Games Workshop games, being into Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. I kind of like to group things together. So what I mean by that is if I'm playing Black Plague or Wolfsburg, I like to, if I'm going to have the dogs in there or the wolves, then I like to have the abominations seem like they're themed with that. So obviously the wolf abomination and the alpha abomination are obvious choices there, but there's some other things that you can stick in there. Or coming from Green Horde, if you've got the Rat King, then I want the Abominarat in there with him. So I kind of like to theme my monsters together. And then also, don't be afraid to take cards out of the spawn deck when you're adding cards to the spawn deck. If you add in 6 Deadeye Walkers, then take out 6 cards from your normal spawn deck. That way you'll see them more often that way, especially if you're going to use NPCs. Then you definitely need to do that because you can really bloat your deck with 12 to 24 NPC cards. It gets ridiculous. You'll see more NPCs on the board than you will standard walkers. That's what really came to light playing it this way. I'd never done that before because in my head I'm like, I know better, don't do that. But once again, I want to give them the chance to see what it's like. And my experience tells me, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah,
Brian, do you like to do your decks different?
Yeah, the how I like to do my decks currently is just to add everything in. But yeah, only one set of NPCs, maybe even less. Like I think next time I might do less than a full set of NPC cards. Instead of the full 12, maybe just 10. Just a little tweak. And then yeah, definitely I would never do the 24. That sounds like a lot to me. And less crows cards, as I've talked about a million times here. And yeah, I would like to see Deadeyes maybe a little bit more. Just a little bit. Like, so take out just a small amount of other things to tune it. But yeah, again, this is the way, like, to play this game, is to have just wild enemy variety and it's just so much fun.
I have a pretty standard formula for modifying the spawn decks. I do it a lot, very similarly between settings where I make sure most of it, I always want most of it to still be horde zombies. So I add in the other one, like the additional ones, but I want them to be on the more special side. So I'll limit it to 5 to 10 cards of those, depending on how big the deck is overall. Pre-abomination deck, I'll put in 2 or 3 cards of each abomination, depending on how many abominations there are. And it'll go through several iterations as we play until we hit like a sweet spot where like every game feels like you're going to lose halfway through, but then you pull through. I think that's like the ideal experience. So I try to kind of aim for that.
Yeah. And again, I do the thing of like, I'm just using the standard abomination and necromancer cards in the deck. And then every time I draw one, I roll. And 1 to 3, I'm using standard, and 4 to 6, I'm drawing from like just a special necromancer deck and just a special abomination deck. Again, thanks to Alex Radcliffe.
Yeah, I'll have to try that out. That sounds cool.
Yeah,
I didn't take the opportunity to after he suggested it.
The way we handle ours, this isn't our idea. We got it from somebody from Board Game Geek or something long ago before they came up with necromancer decks. Is we basically use the abomination decks. What we do is if you pull an abomination at blue, then it's the standard one. Any time you pull it yellow, then we pull from our abomination deck that we have set up. Because all the abomination cards outside of the standard don't show up until yellow anyway. So we figure we give the original guy a chance to come on board. But if he doesn't make it there, then we still got all the hard ones to deal with. So that's how we deal with it. Which is basically almost exactly how, like, say, modern second edition deals with the abominations. We didn't know that was what was going to happen, but that's the way we played it.
Oh, and also for me, for the equipment deck, or for the vault deck, I have to throw in all the vault cards because why not? And then for the equipment deck, I'm throwing in all the Wolfsburg cards, which we'll talk about that more in the Wolfsburg episode. But I just want to say that these equipment cards are really freaking powerful, and helps make the game maybe a little easier.
Yeah,
dare I say, because there even is a 3 damage weapon.
It will also heal you.
Yeah, that'll also heal you. Yeah, it's insane. So because of that, I definitely play with multiple abominations, and as much as I draw, as much as wants to come out, they're welcome to come out and hang out and play. And I do play the Necromancer Cabal. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
So multiple necromancers, and of course, whenever you draw necromancers already necromancers, they get extra activations. I forgot to do that the first couple times, and then if they get close enough to each other, then they each get to move a little more. Right? That's what they do in Cabal.
Yep. Extra activate.
Yeah, that wasn't a problem for me. They never got close enough. Thankfully. Yeah.
All right. Now web quests.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't played with the last 3. Just because I haven't been playing a lot of Black Plague lately. But what I would like to say overall about the quest is I still think it's amazing. I think just at the end of September of last year that they're still putting out quests for this game. I think it was their 57th or 58th quest they put out for fantasy. Now, not all of them are for Black Plague. Some are for Green Horde. But still, most people got this game in their hands in 2016. And here in 2024, they're still putting out free content for this game. That just impresses me. I don't know too many other game companies that put out, free content on as regular a basis as they do.
Yeah, for 8 years running, like none probably. Right? I don't know. Maybe like Warhammer.
It's pretty impressive.
And I know White Death's coming, and obviously they want fantasy to remain relevant, but still, they don't have to do that.
They didn't have. Yeah, that's really cool. Bravo, Simon, and Guillotine Games. Yeah, I look forward to trying out some of these web missions eventually in the future. But yeah, you could just go to zombicide.com, right? And you look for missions, quests, and there's tons and tons of them for all the different versions of Zombicide. James, do you have like an index of these too that you?
Correct. If you're familiar with the 2 volumes of the classic Zombicide mission collections, they basically index them by what you need, what box sets you need to play each mission, what expansions you need to play each mission. So I put something like that together for Zombicide Fantasy. So it has whether or not you need Black Plague or Wolfsburg attached to it, or Green Horde or Friends and Foes. So I put together an index that I've posted online before, and we'll definitely post that again, or throw it on Discord if anybody's interested, so they can quickly reference, hey, I've got Green Horde and Friends and Foes. I want to play a different quest. This is the one I need. So you can look up the name and the quest number, and then you can just go get it off of Guillotine's website for free.
Do you know this? This has probably been answered. Is White Death coming with Abomination deck cards backwards compatible? Okay.
Yes, they are.
Awesome.
All right, custom stuff. I am so excited to finally release. I made this mission template and map editor in this program called Figma. Figma is like the de facto standard for UX UI design. It's totally free, and this also Figma sort of operates like a Google Docs for design, and so it's just really easy to use right in your browser. And it's always been my life plan to get this template for all of the Zombicides. Here I've got Marvel Zombies, Zombicide Black Plague, and Zombicide Classic. It's like for Zombicide Fantasy, there's the mission templates, and then there's on the right, there's like all of the different components to the quest info box components, like the spawn zone tokens and the objective tokens and doors, and even other things like noise tokens and dragon bile and like the different zombie type silhouettes. And then like all of the tiles and all of the things. You could take and you could just drag the components into an area and then drag them onto the template and make your stuff. Marvel Zombie stuff, all the templates for that and all the different modes, and then classic. So yeah, I'm finally releasing that. There will be a link to this in the show notes, and I'll be posting it all over the socials.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Thank you. And then James, you've got some custom stuff to share, right?
Yeah, let me go with oldest to newest. So the first thing I started working on was the ID cards. So the main reason why I like creating different ID cards for this game was, one, to put all the classic characters into the format so you could play them in the plastic dashboards as opposed to the paper dashboards that we all grew to love from our first podcast. So that was the first thing I did with the ID cards. The second thing is I do not like characters that have super strength or +1 damage, melee, or range at blue. I hate that. So I go in and I change every single character that has that, and I give them range damage 2 or melee damage 2. So then that way they can still kill fatties, but they can't kill abominations at blue. I really think that I really don't like that at all.
I totally agree. Even though I made a team just to do that, but it was because of the special, parameters of that mission. But yeah, I agree. +1 damage at blue for any Zombicide game, I do not like it also.
And the other reason why I created more ID cards was once they came out with Green Horde, they basically had a lot of the same weapons, only called something different. Some people get a little tripped up on if you can have a dagger in your extra third hand slot. Well, does that mean you can have a curved dagger? Or if you've got a hammer, can you have this kind of hammer? So I went in and I added basically all the obvious secondary choices there. So if you're playing somebody from Black Plague, but you're using the Green Horde equipment deck, then you can still have something from that deck in your hand. Because like I said, some people just get tripped up on that. And so I just went through and corrected that. So that's the main reason why I create different ID cards. The next thing was the tokens. The tokens are more about using stuff from other people. I didn't create any of the 3D tokens that I talked about earlier, as far as the vault doors, that kind of thing. So I really like those, but I didn't create those, but I use those. And then the third thing is the custom 3D terrain that I made for the board. So my group really got into Black Plague and Green Horde. This took over our lives for 2 or 3 solid years. We didn't play any other version of Zombicide once we were playing this. So I figured, okay, we love it this much. I'm going to go ahead and make 3D terrain. I put all this stuff together, glued it all together, and then came up with all the artwork for the walls and the exteriors. And basically, I did all this for every single tile that comes in any of the core or expansion boxes. So yeah, Black Plague, Green Horde, Friends and Foes, Wolfsburg, that kind of thing. And we loved it. It worked out really, really well for us. It's worked out really well. It's added to our enjoyment. And I had a lot of fun doing the project. The last thing, and this is a current project I'm working on with another guy from Discord, and we are coming up with our own custom campaign. And the concept is that you only need the Black Plague core box to play it. And it's a campaign in the style of a second edition campaign like Rio de Janeiro or Fort Hendricks, where the objective tokens are now note cards or objective cards that you read with note cards. And there's a story that goes along with it. So we're about 7 quests in. I don't know how many, more quests we're going to do, but I'm really looking forward to getting that completed and getting that out to people to try, and hope. We've had a lot of fun with it. So that's what I'm working on currently.
Very cool. I have nothing. I'm not interesting like you guys are as far as custom Zombicide stuff goes. But that's an insane amount of work from you both.
Yeah. Yeah. The 3D terrain buildings are awesome. They look really, really great.
Yeah.
We talked about essential expansions last time. Wolfsburg to me is the best value, is like the first and most essential thing, I think, because of all the survivors and the enemy types. And, of course you get more quests and all of that in there. And then I think after that, it's probably more abominations and more necromancers. So whether you're getting, individual boxes that have necromancers in them from the guest boxes, or, the zombie bosses, or you're just getting all the Kickstarter stuff. And then after that, it's like Deadeye Walkers, Murder of Crows, and then NPCs.
I would say if you're new to the game and you're not a completionist, then Wolfsburg should be your second purchase after Black Plague. I absolutely agree with Ryan. Wolfsburg gives you the most bang for your buck. After that, it's kind of up to you. If you like multiple abominations, then the Hero Boss Pack would probably be your next best buy. And then if you're trying to decide which to get between the Huntsman or the Knights box, well, the Huntsman box is going to give you a lot more in it than the Knight Pack does. So that's just going to have to come down to what you're willing to afford, what kind of good deal you can find. But I absolutely agree that Wolfsburg, hands down, should be your second purchase after Black Plague.
if in case anybody doesn't know, like all of the fantasy stuff is compatible with all of the fantasy stuff. So
yeah,
CMON is a genius in having their whole standalone expansion thing, which means like Green Horde and Black Plague are standalones, but they also can be expansions to each other in that you can use a lot of their content interchangeably within. They do that across all the different, or a lot of the different Zombicide genres, except you kind of have to stay within the genre, whether it's modern or fantasy, Marvel or
they are
Western.
Technically fully compatible. I will say a lot of the times when a core box has like a different kind of horde zombie as the default, it happens in Invader, it happens in Room Org, it happens in Green Horde. Mixing them just makes everything a lot more diluted.
Right. Yeah.
The only other thing I would add too is if you've just bought Black Plague and you're looking for the next thing to buy, Friends and Foes is a great expansion, but just be aware that you're not going to be able to play all the quests in Friends and Foes just with Black Plague. You'll also need Green Horde.
Green Horde.
So just keep that in mind. It's a great expansion, but just keep in mind that you're only going to be able to use half the quests in the mission.
And that mostly is due to like the tiles, right?
Yeah.
Probably some of the other components too. All right. Any other thoughts? All right.
As you can probably tell from this, I love this game. It's one of their best editions they've ever made. And if you like, fantasy dungeon crawlers, then you got to get this.
Yeah. And I'm a bit of a convert, someone who is like, very, very lukewarm or tepid, cold on this, honestly, on Zombicide Fantasy and Zombicide Black Plague. I've learned to love it through use of all, because like, it's funny. I played Invader way before I played this, and I was like, immediately, I was like, the way to play Invader is adding all of the extra promo Xenos and having that great variety of flingers and moth dudes and whatever, they're xenomorphs and drillers. And I'm getting ahead of myself because we're going to be covering that pretty soon. But I was like, oh, it's because they borrowed from Black Plague, didn't they, in that concept?
A lot of them,
so happened. I mean, I guess you could say to some extent classic too. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, this is the great way to play.
I was the same way. I wasn't super enthused because I saw Black Plague when it was like when the Kickstarter was going on. I didn't really have disposable income at the time. I didn't kickstart it. I had Zombicide seasons 1 and 2 already, and it didn't grab me. I was like, yeah, it's Zombicide but fantasy. I read a little on the unique mechanics in it, but like coming back to it now in the future that I have enough money for all that. It's very cool. And you can really see, especially playing all the ones after this before you come back to it, really just how influential Black Plague was as the first step towards like what the modern set of mechanics that is Zombicide.
Yeah, and as far as the value of the Kickstarter itself, if you leave out all the optional buys and just went with the night pledge, it's $150 for 195 miniatures. I don't see how you're getting better than that. I really don't. I mean, I don't think you could buy a bag of plastic army men at the dollar store for cheaper per plastic count than that. I mean, honestly, I just don't understand how people can't think that's a good value, because to me, it's just absolutely is amazing. I wish we still had that kind of.
I'm sure people would love to get it for $150 now.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed our review of the Zombicide Black Plague Kickstarter and expansions. Next episode, we will be reviewing Zombicide Invader, the core game. So we're going to get into the sci-fi setting on the next one. And our book club mission will be Mission 8, Code Orange. So if you want to play along, dive in and play that mission. And we'll be sharing our thoughts on how that went. Awesome. Okay, so that shuts the vault door on this episode. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Good night, everybody.
Stay nice out there.
Happy gaming.
Thanks again for listening to the Zombicide Fans podcast. Zombicide Fans is an unofficial podcast that is not affiliated with or endorsed by CMON or Guillotine Games. Thank you from your hosts, Ryan Messick, Schmedley Mayers, and James Fisher. And thanks to our sponsor, BoardGameGoodies.shop, where listeners can save 10% with coupon code PODCAST. You can check out the show on all major podcast listening platforms and on YouTube. You can reach us at zombicidefans@gmail.com. The podcast is hosted at zombicidefans.com. Join our communities in the Zombicide Discord and the All Zombicide Games Facebook group. All links will be in the show notes. Until next time, survive.